Tired of bloating, fatigue and sluggish digestion? Meet your gut's new best friend, NutriHealth 365's microbiome supplement. Restore balance, boost immunity, and feel amazing from the inside out. Smart delayed release capsules, real results. Gut health just got personal.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Thursday's episode of Trending. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the IDF criminal probe into leaked abuse video. We're also going to touch on the fact that a former chief of the Mossad has bragged openly during a podcast that actually Israel has booby-trapped equipment in all the countries you could possibly imagine. Also, taxes, they're going up again in England. You'll be very surprised to hear. And also, the absolute horrors in Sudan appear to be getting worse by the day. Welcome to this morning's episode of Trending. As always, brought to you in association with NutriHealth 365. The link is in the description below. Okay, let's start off with this. This is a breaking story. IDF... So the Israel Defense Forces launches criminal probe into leak of Palestinian detainee abuse video as Army's legal chief is put on leave. Now note the word in there. It's not a criminal probe into the abuse. It's a criminal probe into the leak of the footage of the abuse. Now, a lot of you watching this may well have seen it. It's horrific. A Palestinian prisoner in jail in Israel is quite clearly being sexually assaulted, raped by a number of soldiers and of Israeli soldiers. Others are basically trying to block the camera footage and put up screens in the way so you can't see what's going on, but everyone can see what's going on. And the injuries as a result of it are truly horrific. So this is from the Haaretz. This is from an Israeli news outlet. The Israel Defense Forces said on Wednesday that it has launched a criminal probe into last year's leak of a video showing the alleged abuse of a Gazan detainee at its military facility, which led to the arrest of 5 soldiers. Well, that's the start. They've arrested 5 soldiers. Okay. The IDF added that military advocate General Yitaf Tomer Yerushalayim, I've probably absolutely butchered that name, has been placed on leave pending further clarification of the details of the matter. Now, I think basically they've been put on leave because there's been accusations that actually this footage was leaked intentionally by people within the IDF. So people that work within the Israel Defense Forces that, they're part of the Israeli military, but they're probably, they probably draw the line at gang rape. You'd hope, wouldn't you? Now, this is a tweet by Jonathan Cook. He's a journalist. He's very good on the Middle East in general, to be fair. Israeli soldiers were caught in the video raping a Palestinian captive last year, causing severe internal injuries. No one disputes that rape happened. They don't. Normally what you get with Israel is you get the shaggy treatment that we've spoke about before. It wasn't me. And then it comes out. Yeah, okay, it was us, but they made us do it. And then in the end, oh no, we're going to have an investigation, and nothing ever happens as a result of it. But with this, there wasn't that much denial, to be fair, because obviously the video was out there and it was circulating all over social media, and it was freaking grim. Since then, the Israeli military has launched a criminal probe into the leaking of the video. As I said, not the abuse, not what's going on in the video, but who leaked it. Defense Minister Israel Katz has, what a name, Israel Katz has called the videos leaking a blood libel against the Israeli military. How are facts blood libel? How is footage from your own security cameras blood libel? Where's the libel? It happened. And I'm glad someone within the IDF leaked it. They're doing it, their duty as a freaking human being. Unbelievable. Israel's top military law officer has been forced on leave after suspicions that staff in her office leaked the video. Like I say, I'm glad they did. Haaretz reports that the rapist soldiers identified from the video are currently not in custody or under any legal restrictions. So it's all well and good a year ago saying, yeah, they arrested the 5 guys that did it, that are on film, on their own internal CCTV footage doing it. They're probably in Gaza now on the front line again. It's absolutely insane. And you have to ask, where is the outrage in terms of the international community? Because these people within media, mainstream media, within politics, whatever, they can't normally find a microphone quick enough to virtue signal about what is often irrelevant nonsense. Yet when it comes to something like this, crickets. And this is the issue with tribalism, you see, is people pick a side and they're willing to allow the side they've chosen to do what it wants whilst focusing their attention on what the other side does, as opposed to just going, that's wrong, that's wrong. It's mad to me, ladies and gentlemen, how few people have the ability to do that. Like for me personally, yes, I'm calling out Israel and what it's doing because it's doing horrendous things and it's getting away with it. There's no accountability and my government is supporting it. But on October 7th, I was saying, what the hell is going on? This is disgusting. Shouldn't be killing people, period. Shouldn't be doing that. Shouldn't be raping people. That shouldn't need to be said. Like that shouldn't need to be a point that you have to make on a morning podcast. That should just be as read. Yeah, well, obviously, everyone's against it. But people are willing to look the other way. It's mad to me. Because this whole thing in terms of Palestine, it's always kind of been framed this way, but it's been massively exaggerated in the last 2 years as a battle between Muslims and Judeo-Christians, basically. Which isn't what it's all about. I mean, of course, there's a religious undercurrent in certain aspects of it, but a lot of it is just basically, well, it's a land grab. It's a people that live in an area basically being forcefully removed from that area over a period of 80 plus years, being treated as second-class citizens, being tried in military courts when Jewish Israelis are tried in civil courts. Like everything is set up in a way that's completely different. That's nothing to do with religion. And what a lot of people refuse to acknowledge is the Palestinian Christians. They're a problem. Palestinian Christians are like the Building 7 on 9/11. Because they create a problem to that whole it's the Muslims narrative. Because, well, hang on a minute. Why are those people that are either religious or have suddenly become religious in the last 2 years, just suddenly woke up and suddenly they're Christians and they're spouting Bible passages on X, why did they have nothing to say about the bombing of Christian churches in Gaza? Some of them are some of the oldest in the world. Why did they have nothing to say when Catholics were attacked and killed in a church in Gaza by the IDF? They didn't have anything to say about that. Because if they acknowledge that, well, then that throws into question the whole it's the Muslims thing. Because, okay, if we're hating the Palestinians for being Muslim, how do we hate them if they're not all Muslim, right? And, of course, a lot of this kind of support for Israel from the West, from the United States and from the UK particularly, doesn't actually really come from support of Israel. Not really. I mean, they say the same talking points that they've obviously read in their pamphlet. It's the only democracy in the Middle East, all that kind of stuff. They spout that stuff and it has a right to defend itself. Yeah, right, I didn't even ask you a question yet. You've already reeled that one off. But they don't actually know that much about what's gone on because despite accusing those that are protesting on behalf of what's gone on of basically jumping on it, in 2023, that's almost a bit of a projection in a way, because a lot of the people that are now so rabidly pro-Israel, including the ones that are flying out there at the behest of their government, they've kind of only just sort of started following this in the last 2 years themselves. It's almost like every accusation is a confession. And then there's some of us that have been looking at this for decades. So because it's framed as a, Muslim versus Judeo-Christian, I'm bunching those two together because that's what they like doing. Battle. So because of that tribal kind of aspect of it, you have people that will call out Muslim rape gangs and grooming gangs in the United Kingdom, as they should, because it's abhorrent, yet there will be crickets when it comes to this. Now, at the same time, there will be people, almost certainly, because of the law of averages, and in fact, I've probably seen one or two from memory, that will be shouting about the rape of Palestinian prisoners, but they don't really say much about the grooming gangs. They kind of sweep that one under the rug a little bit. So this isn't necessarily me digging out one side. Both sides are guilty of that tribalism. And there's actually, like I say, an alarmingly small amount of people that are willing to go, grooming gangs are freaking despicable. There's clearly a connection between the Pakistani community and these grooming gangs in sheer number of it. There's clearly an issue here. There's an issue with mass immigration, both legal and illegal immigration, because we like to be pointed to the boats and not to the legal immigration, and what that does in terms of cohesion in communities, what that does in terms of public services and safety of our kids. You can have that opinion and say that Israel blowing children to pieces for 2 years is despicable, and settlers from Brooklyn coming over to the West Bank and stealing land off of indigenous people is wrong. You can have those two opinions, but apparently you can't. There's very few of us, actually. So if you're pro-Israel, which, algorithmically and financially in some cases, pays quite well and it serves you to be that way, but then, that's where you have to think about where your morals are. You will be rabidly pro-Israel and rabidly against mass immigration and grooming gangs. That is a position that's fine. All right, there you go. You got a job on GB News. Not a problem. You can be massively against what Israel is doing in terms of the massacring of Palestinians, and then for some reason you have to be absolutely cricket silent when it comes to grooming gangs and mass immigration. In which case, fine, not a problem. You've probably got a gig on Channel 4, right? But if you come in the middle and go, that's horrendous, then basically you get gobbed off at from both sides, which, for me is fine. I've had it my whole life. And also you're not elevated. In fact, you're suppressed in terms of your view, because that's not a view that the establishment that, encompasses all of this wants, which is, let's just have some fairness. That's wrong. Let's call it out and do something about it. That's wrong. Let's call it out and do something about it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how, as a society, we can actually move forward. People have this attitude of, there'll always be war in the Middle East. There'll always be war in general. It's just, since the beginning of time. Well, yeah, but it's about time it stopped then, isn't it? And people watching this might be like, well, that's bloody naive. Well, I'd rather be naive than void of hope, to be honest. And actually, if we have an attitude of fairness, of like, look, no, that's wrong. I know they're on my side, but that's wrong. We would have half a chance as a society and as a world, actually, of going, well, no, that's I'm against injustice, even when my side does it. But it seems to be a rare stance to take. And I'll be honest, like I say, maybe I'm naive, but I don't get that. It's like that tribalism you find in football. And I remember being at a football match. I was with my brother, actually. We went to watch Crawley Town, who were a non-league side at the time, playing against Derby, who I support, who were dreadful at the time, but still in the Football League. And Derby won a penalty. And everyone's cheering. And it was the most blatant dive I think I've ever seen. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Porter, his name was Chris Porter, I think. It was the most horrendous dive I've ever seen, right? And I'll be honest with you, I was disgusted by it. And so Chris Commons stands up, takes the penalty for Derby, and he misses it. And inside, I was like, good. I didn't shout it because I didn't want to get punched in the head. But I was like, good, because that's justice. Even though he's on my team. For us to score that goal and go 1-0 up against a non-league team based on a dive, a cheating, that's immoral. And I don't agree with that. And that's not me, I'm not trying to pretend to be Mother Teresa. Well, I'm not sure she was all that nice, to be honest. But I'm just making the point. If we had the ability to do that, this is on both sides, by the way, of going, what my side here has done is wrong. What my side here done, what the other side say is done is right. I agree with that. We kind of get that little bit of equilibrium, which I think would make the world a better place. It'd be a start. But like I said, the establishment doesn't want that because the polarization is great because you just fight. Just fight all the time. See it all the time on social media. People just going, I might get people going at me all the time. It doesn't bother me because I'm old enough and ugly enough to take it. But it's still not pleasant for a lot of people. A lot of people take it personally. And the other thing about this polarization as well, we spoke about this many times, and this is not even just like reserved to the Middle East, but this is, to do with politics in general, is one side is always elevated. So one side previously, say for instance the so-called left, although I hate the left and right stuff because they don't mean that they don't mean what they used to mean anymore. But take it as a polarization rather than necessarily a political, persuasion or ideology. When all the woke stuff was there, they were winning. And they were silencing the hell out of people that were on the right, people that were calling out, drag queen story hour. People were calling out the COVID stuff. These people were having them cancelled and they were winning. And what that did is it set a precedent, ladies and gentlemen. And then what happened is they started losing. Piers Morgan's just released his book, Woke is Dead. They started losing. Suddenly the right started being elevated. And what did they do? Well, they started cancelling them back. Well, what's happened in those two things there is everyone's kind of got cancelled. Humanity's got cancelled. Freedom of speech has been attacked on both sides. So the establishment and all its various guises, they want the polarization. They don't want people to go, well, yeah, I think you're a bit of a knobhead on this, but actually we align on this, we align on that. Which actually, I think if you turn off your social media for a start, but if you get people into, normally the countryside, people tend to be more honest in the countryside for whatever reason, and you actually sit down and actually have a conversation, as opposed to barking at each other in caps lock, but have an actual conversation, you'll realize that whilst you disagree on various things, even on Israel-Palestine, you might disagree on that, you will agree and align probably on most things, which most people just want to get on. They want to survive this hellhole as it is being turned into, and provide for their kids, and have a roof over their head and food in the belly and all that kind of stuff, and a pint on a Friday night. That's what most people fundamentally want. Unfortunately, because one side seems to be winning, that means the other side, by very definition, is losing. So you end up with half of society, say, it's not split down the middle, but for argument's sake, half is losing. And so half is disenfranchised, half is angry, half feels downtrodden. Well, that's not a society. And so you find the same, you can apply that then to the Middle East and to Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank in particular. If you've got one side that's being oppressed, and one side that's short of water and short of food and having their land stolen from them, and then you've got another side which is winning, chilling out on a beach in Tel Aviv with a pina colada, well, that's not sustainable as a society. So, okay, you can go, right, fine, all right, well, we'll expel those ones, kick them out into Europe, which is what they're trying to do. I don't think that's fair. I don't know about you. I don't think that's fair. So would it not be better then if both sides could have a little bit? If Israelis didn't have to run to air raid shelters in their garden, if Palestinians didn't have to bury their kids on the daily, wouldn't that be great? And it's not impossible. The problem is we just let the demons run amok. As Bill Hicks said, that's what we've done. We've let the demons run amok. And they just drag us along with it. It's insane. And, yes, at the moment, like, I'm going in a little bit on Israel, which I know is bad for me personally. I'm going to get loads more abuse for doing that. everything I produce content-wise will be algorithmically suppressed because of that, it would be very easy for me to go, do you know what, I ain't going to talk about this story today. Or maybe I'll put it later in the show. I'll put it so it's on Iconic. But actually for the bit that I put out onto, you know, the wider internet, I'll just slag Starmer off. I'll focus on digital ID and taxes. It'll get algorithmically boosted to hell. And, you know, it'd be great. We'll go to Five Guys afterwards, celebrate. Look how many views we got. But for me, that's not what it's about. It's about talking about the truth and holding people to account, governments to account, when they're doing something wrong. And I think everyone should be doing that. And what bugs me and why I call out Israel is no one's holding them to account. They do what they like. That's a problem. It's a problem when any government can do what it wants. You know, when Britain and America went over and bombed the living daylights out of Iraq with impunity, that was wrong. And I'm saying that as an Englishman. It was wrong. Well and truly wrong. And I protested against it, both in America, actually, in Chicago, and in London at the time. Even though I was, 21, I think? 20, 21? It was wrong then. Killing people was wrong then. It's wrong now. And so that's why I'm going in a little bit on it, because, you know, not only are our governments aiding and abetting and supporting, you know, and financing in many ways, and the media is whitewashing and telling you to look over there, look, there's a raccoon on your porch, rather than looking at what's going on. But also large swathes of the so-called alternative media are all lapping it up. And all the influencers are lapping it up and going off to lick the wall. And they're buying up TikTok and they're buying up CNN to control the narrative even more. That's not right. So I'll carry on calling it out. Now, one thing I want to call out today as well, which is extraordinary, which is part of it, is this video. Now, bearing in mind, of course, with Israel, again, it's how it's framed. So Israel booby-trapped a bucket load of pages that belonged to members of Hezbollah in Lebanon. And they blew them up, blew people's legs off, killed a bunch of them, made a load of them disabled. Now, what the narrative was in the public sphere and the influencers and President Trump was that this was amazing. This was cool. And, you know, Netanyahu even gave Trump a golden pager and Trump laughed when he received it. That was great. But what they failed to mention is the fact that they weren't reserved just for Hezbollah operatives. They were going off in shopping centers. They killed children. That's wrong. And again, like I said earlier, I shouldn't have to sit here at this time on a Thursday morning and explain into a microphone that killing kids is wrong. That's weird that you have to even say that. Yeah, that was cool. Because it's okay when we do it. Could you imagine if Iran, or even say Hezbollah, let's flip it on its head. If Hezbollah had got a bunch of pagers into the pockets of IDF soldiers as they're walking through the streets on patrol, and their legs blow off and whatever, and it kills, you know, Jewish kids in the street. Could you imagine, rightly, by the way, the worldwide condemnation of that? That would be a war crime. But when we do it, it's fine. Well, how about it's not fine when either side do it? And so with that in mind, obviously you had that pager incident. Then you had Benjamin Netanyahu when he was at a conference that was full of American delegates, including politicians, saying that phone in your pocket, you've got a little bit of Israel in your pocket. And I said at the time, that felt like a warning, and it sounded like a warning, which is, it can be taken in different ways. It could be taken in the fact that I can blow your leg off by pressing a button like we did with the Hezbollah guys, or it could be taken in the fact that we're inside your phone. We have intelligence inside your phone. So we know who you're talking to, what you're saying, what you're doing at all times, whether you're going off script or whatever. So then I saw this video yesterday. Now, this is an ex-Mossad chief bragging about the fact that they have booby-trapped equipment in all the countries you could possibly imagine. Watch this.
Did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Surprises?
Yeah.
You mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many equipment, treated equipment do we have in these countries?
Mm.
You don't. I do.
You mean
I do.
You mean booby-trapped equipment?
not only booby-trapped,
And spying.
manipulated equipment. All right?
In which countries you're talking about?
All countries that you can imagine.
And not Gaza?
Not Gaza. Not
Nothing in
enough.
Gaza at all.
Did you see that? If we had it, I mean, we knew something about them coming. Something, right? I would have sold them everything. Just everything. I mean, you can't imagine the quantity when I have invented that method. That was in 2002 to 2004.
The pager method.
The manipulated equipment method. Okay? We have already used it. Manipulated equipment in Second Lebanon War. Some of the elements were speaking to us.
How did you use it?
Want a glass of water?
We can get some brandy.
He could tell you, but he didn't.
I know it's an early morning in London. I mean, I don't think that is the case. But how did we do it? I tell you.
Now, that should be somewhat alarming. And as I've mentioned earlier, it's okay when we do it. If you had an Iranian, former chief of Iranian intelligence sat there saying, yeah, we've got booby-trap stuff in all the countries around the world, that'd be front-page news, mate. Rightly so. Everyone would be going, what the hell? But it's okay when we do it. And people will support it because it's their side, right? They have this whole tribalism thing. Now, just finally, he mentions there about the fact that they booby-trap stuff during the Second Lebanon War, right? Now, he doesn't go into specifics, this guy. So you think, oh, maybe they booby-trapped some weapons, a tank, I don't know, a military command post, some pagers even. Maybe they did that before. No, do you know what they did? They booby-trapped toys. They planted bombs inside toys and had them left in the street, dropped into the street. So kids would come running out of their houses and go, oh my goodness me, that looks like a truck or whatever, and they pick it up and bang. I mean, are there even words for that? For the psychopathy to be able to do that? Now, if the Lebanese had planted bombs in toys and put them in the streets of Tel Aviv to lure out Israeli kids and kill them, I would be sat here saying that's freaking abhorrent. Because it's, for me, wrong and right are wrong and right. It doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter who's saying it. It matters if it's wrong and it matters if it's right. But how many people will look at that and go, and actually, to be fair, be maybe massively pro-Israel, and that's fine, that's your choice. Go inside, oh mate, they booby-trap toys to lure kids out. This was in the late 90s as well, so, long before October 7th. And go, because I've got a moral compass, inside there, I feel something when I hear that, right? Because that's just what the hell. But then by the time it gets to here, and certainly before it gets to there, it goes through the filter of, but they're my side. And if I call this out, what does that mean? What does that mean perhaps for my position within the tribe? Oh, I didn't realize you turned into an Islamist. So many times, it's severed there before it gets to there because they won't vocalize it. Don't want to talk about it. I feel it because you'd have to be pretty demonic, to be fair, to not feel something. But I'm not going to vocalize it. And in fact, I'm just going to say the opposite, probably. And I'm going to attack anyone that calls it out because it's my tribe, right? They've weaponized tribalism. Tribalism in many ways can be great. We said it during COVID, find your tribe. Do you know what I mean? But it's been weaponized to such a point. I don't have a problem with patriotism. I think that's great. Love the country you live in. Love the people around you and want what's best for it. But if it comes at the detriment of others and it comes at the detriment of your own morality, well, that's kind of a problem for everyone else and for you personally, certainly on a spiritual level. Okay, so that's all for the free section that goes out, obviously, on all the usual algorithmically suppressed outlets. To continue watching, I'm going to be talking about Starmer, and like I said, could have put that bit out on the main sort of internet social media sites, and I'd have probably done much better. But it's not what it's about. We're going to talk about Starmer lying again. You'll be well and truly surprised. We're also going to be talking about what's going on in Sudan at the moment, and actually how that kind of ties into something a lot deeper and goes way, way further back. The link to that is in the description below. You can click that, go straight through to iconic.com. It's still free. It's just hosted on iconic.com.